Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending upon where you live around the world. This is just a quickie, one of little actual benefit in the development of my dome project, and it's more for my satisfaction than anything else. However, I think in saying that, it just will go to reinforce the need to have a process through which you can check your own work. For if you don't, you can work in the assumption that what you're doing is correct and accurate and be wrong in that assumption. Now, I've touched on this before in another video, and again I repeat it here because I think the chances that someone can fall into the same trap are quite high. Now, I'm reasonably comfortable with what I'm doing with these drawings, the process and the understanding of them. However, in that becomes that assumption of I know what I'm doing, so therefore I am accurate. But if you don't have a method of checking, you wind up having an issue like I've found. I'll just unhide things here and then back out of it again to show you what I was talking about. I've created these honeycomb structures so that I've got the planes upon which the struts can be drawn. Now, I think this is a reasonable approach. I'm not saying it's the best or anything. Like in many of the things I'm doing, I'm making the suggestion that it works and is visually pleasing. And so I proceeded to draw some of the struts for the dome, and I know that if the point of rotation is correct, I can rotate one strut over to the other side, which I did. So I know that the strut is of identical size, thinking that was one way to ensure accuracy and consistency. I did that, but I found, lo and behold, when I rotated it, that the distance to these points, which should have been dead accurate, were different because the strut stuck out past the point of intersection. So when I put my line tool on just to get my measurement, if you look down in the bottom right hand corner, it's approximately 2.541 meters, or 2,541 millimeters. But yet when I sling it across there, it's nothing like that. It's quite a bit different, about 14 millimeters different or so. So where in my drawing did I get it wrong? I suggest, without having checked, that when you are joining lines, that sometimes you can join at a point that's not actually the point upon which you were aiming for, but it's so close that the software generates that line and you proceed in the assumption that you've got it right. That's still strange, it's still unsatisfactory, and that's why I go back to, when you create your dome structures, you start out with the porcupine, because those surfaces were created via this tool or this process, and through checking these you'll be able to find whether you did indeed create an error. And because I tend to create say these three lines here, I rotate them round into the different planes, then I better be darn well sure that I've got these lines correct. So let's just have a quick look. It's one, because I've actually scaled this, so it's 4243, 4243. So those measurements are correct. 43, 43, 4, 3, as they should have been. There's nothing about those being generated, so that you know the process upon which you build all your domes, and you're using here again, is accurate. It's correct and accurate. Not, those words aren't synonymous. Similar but not synonymous. Okay, so you can backtrack to this point, and if you needed to, do it again. But because these drawings here were the truncated version to give us their flush and plane, we can backtrack to a point, which is what I'm getting at. With the process, you can backtrack to the point and see what you did wrong, rather than having to do the whole thing again. There again, it's not that onerous. You can decide to go, well, let's just start again and see whether we can find the point at which the change occurred, and if you don't, you wind up with your accurate model, and you can proceed from there. Okay, so that was, as I said, probably not of a benefit to anyone watching or listening, but the point that even though I'm comfortable with my process, that I can introduce the error somewhere, just makes it more important for anyone else trying to do a similar process. Have a method of checking their own work. Don't assume your proficiency will mean repeated accuracy. Okay, that's all. Just a short one. I'll see you again later. Bye.